I want to start off by saying hello and thank you. Please give it up for your guests. Shingo. There you go, sir. Substantial, please come to the stage. And last but not least, Marcus D. Ooh, knocking over everybody's water, and I missed you. Real soft like, because I missed it. Ooh, there you go. All right, so we have come to talk about the intersection of African American and Asian culture. Is that cool with y'all? So I'll be moderating. My name is EyeQ, and we just came to talk a little hip-hop history with you guys. So questions are appreciated. We don't have an itinerary because we really wanted you guys to be able to interact and talk about the things that you guys wanted to talk about today. Is that cool? Is that cool with y'all?
Yes.
Fight! No. So please take a seat. So I guess we can start either with questions or with what you guys kind of would like to talk about. Oh, you got a microphone, right?
Sure.
Oh.
Well, peace, everybody. As the brother mentioned, my name is Substantial. I think like a lot of us, I grew up, obviously I grew up in the black community by default. And growing up, I remember, obviously there were certain experiences unique to my community, but one thing I always remember was just, different influences from a wide variety of places, but absolutely Asian culture, in particular Chinese and Japanese, probably the most. Whether it was via television or, I was someone who participated in martial arts as well. But just kind of constantly seeing those connections early on. But the thing that intrigued me as I got older was when I started to see similarities in the culture, like from, basic things. For example, I have a group called Edo Bushido. And so a lot of times when you say Edo, people think of the era in Japan, right? But there's a city in Benin that's actually called Edo in Western Africa, and there's a lot of things in that particular region that shares connections with the culture and stuff, and so I find that very intriguing and stuff, and it's interesting we'll just say a lot later in life, start see all of these connections and how they've affected me in one way or another. So.
Okay, so I don't know who wants to talk next, but one thing we can do is just for the people in the room who might not know, your origins or where you come from or who you are, please introduce yourself to people who might not know you.
My apologies, I'm sorry. And I was excited just now. Hi, folks over here and in the middle. So my name is Stan Robinson. My stage name is Substantial. I am a recording artist. I'm a graphic artist as well. And I got my start in the music industry working with a producer by the name of Educator. And that happened around 1999 was when he first contacted me. And I signed a contract with him and later recorded in Japan with him for several years. For his passing, and so I've spent, thanks to my connection with that brother, I spent a lot of time overseas working with him and a lot of other people in Japan and abroad.
Okay, next, Shingo.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is SHINGO2 is my stage name. My real name is Shingo Annen. Annen is actually a Japanese surname of the Shingon Buddhist sect. An means peace, and Nen is for pray. And I can actually trace that family name back like 800 years when one of the samurai class that worked with the Wada clan in the Kamakura era, they lost a battle and then they became a Buddhist monk, and then they went to Toyama Prefecture. And on my mom's side too, I can get into that, but it'll take too long for now. But they're both from one way or another from a samurai class, and they all fled and survived, therefore I'm here. I'm glad that they didn't die an honorable death, otherwise, you know. But it's true, history is made by survivors, you know, one way or another. If you run, you survive. So, yeah, so to introduce myself quickly, I was born in Japan, Tokyo, to my parents who were both from Tokyo, but my grandparents are from everywhere because of that history, actually. Mother's side from Kagoshima all the way in the south, and Yaku Island in particular is my grandfather. And my father worked in the trade business, so I grew up in Tanzania from age 3 to 6. So I was in East Africa for a while, and that's where my memory begins, my exposure to just the world as I understood. And I pretty much grew up in the wild there. But in terms of race, in terms of this context, I definitely had a unique experience of having Asian privilege sort of over there, because I lived on the privileged side of the fence, where on the other side of the street you just saw, this is still in the 1970s, mind you, so I can't speak for how it's right now, but you know, you literally saw people in huts, and that really quite shocked me. Those were like my formative memories, you know what I mean? And I also remember having a trip down to South Africa, and people called us honorary whites. And even as a little kid, that kind of shocked me, you know, and that stuff still existed when I was growing up. And from there, I was plucked away, and our family moved to London. I spent 3 years there, and I got exposed to a lot of pop culture there. And then I went back to Japan, spent some years, then age 15, I moved to Bay Area, you know. And I went to high school there, and then I went to UC Berkeley. And in fall of 93, I moved up there for college, and that's where I met authentic hip-hop artists. You know, in my high school years, I was just a listener. I just listened to hip-hop on the radio, and I never really dreamed about participating except for my love for art. That was always there since I was a little kid. So when I moved out to Berkeley, I just immediately started providing art to all of my idols that I listened to in high school, like Dell from Hieroglyphics, and they befriended me because I could speak and read Japanese, like I could translate video game instructions, and I was of some use to them. But I was so psyched to be part of that culture. You know, I was just so excited to just finish school, go out on Telegraph Avenue, and everyone was doing something there, you know, whether selling albums or making flyers so I just got sucked into that culture, and here I am 25 years later.
That's
yeah.
Great, man. So, Marcus, please introduce yourself and tell them a little bit about your journey.
My name is Marcus Marino. I go by the stage name Marcus D. I'm originally from Seattle, Washington, West Coast. I currently live in Tokyo, Japan. I'm a composer and producer. And actually, kind of the same way as Shingo, I started out with my career of just being a fan of music. In the very beginning, I was a huge fan of the Final Fantasy series and the composer Nobuo Uematsu. And that kind of, I guess, started my love for music. So from there, it kind of grew when I was in high school. I played piano, and I was introduced to Nujabeza's music by a friend of mine when I became a fan of Shingo's and Substantial's. And I, the same way, kind of went to one of Substantial's shows and befriended him and became close to him and worked on music together. We've been working on music for about 10, 11 years now. So in the beginning, I was just a fan, but with enough drive and determination, you can turn that into pretty much anything if you put your mind to it. So that was sort of my story growing up and being involved with music. And, I really wanted to be involved with it and, continued to put myself out there and just made myself present and aware of things that were going on, and just continued to sharpen my craft and, send it out to people and things like that. So they've been gracious enough to let me be a part of that circle, even though I never officially worked with Nujabes. Worked with his label Hideout a number of times and everybody around him. And it's just a great group of guys that, are really down to earth and obviously extremely gracious. So I'm lucky to be here, and I'm happy that I get to share the stage with them. So thank you for listening.
Okay, that's awesome. So before we begin, like, talking questions and things of that nature, I got some things I want to know. So for me, right, everybody has two moments, right, when you start making hip-hop. It was that moment that you fell in love with it, right? And it's that moment that you said, like, hey, I'm going to actually try my hand and, start exploring the art form itself. If it's one thing through just, knowing you guys, I've noticed that artistic expression is within almost everything that you guys do, right? So I'm super curious. Like I got to learn more about your obsession with art, which is awesome. When did you decide? And like, when was that moment that you said, what was, was there a song? Was there a moment in hip hop? Was there something that pulled you in to where you said, I'm ready to do this and give it a shot? So whoever wants to start.
I guess since I was just talking, I'll just go with the flow. But actually, for me, in the beginning with music in general, it was the Final Fantasy's Prelude, just the real simple scale. But I went downstairs and played that on the piano, and I was really inspired by it. I was actually very young at the time. But from that point on, I kind of got involved more and more just with music in general. And then when I was in high school, there were people in my neighborhood and at school that were rapping and freestyling, and they needed beats, So at that point, I didn't really think that I had the gift of rapping. My rhythm is pretty decent, but it's nowhere near rap-worthy. So I decided to make beats and make the music behind it, because I was always interested in how it was produced and the way that it was produced and the history behind it.
Well, you play the piano pretty darn well, so don't be shy about that.
No, I mean, I played the piano for a long time, but hip-hop was where I actually felt like my heart was in it and my soul was in it, as far as being able to express myself. Because with piano, I was constantly playing classical music and a lot of things that I didn't necessarily love. But with hip-hop, I was able to actually create my own sound. Like with the piano, you're playing other people's pieces unless you're composing yourself. And I enjoyed playing pieces from video games that I liked, and I've always been enthralled with Japanese culture. But for me, it was hip-hop that really touched my soul, and the combination of Japanese culture with Nujabes, where it was something that was very easy for me to relate to because I'd been listening to Japanese composers my whole life. So the way that it kind of mixed together with Japanese culture and hip-hop culture, it was like the perfect storm of just me falling in love with music or hip-hop again, in a different way, where it felt like this was something that I needed to do, that I really wanted to do. So that's kind of how I've gotten involved with that, and
For me, I would say I fell in love with. It wasn't just like rhyming, all of the elements. I'm a visual artist, so I started doing graffiti like really, really young. I grew up in PG County, not too far from here, and I was living off of Sheriff Road in Landover, and I was just always a little different. So like, you know, I saw dudes in movies and on TV because I wasn't seeing it in my neighborhood. You know, down here we got go-go. So like, you know, it wasn't common for me to walk outside and see someone with like cardboard on the pavement actually breakdancing. So, but I was a kid, and because I was a kid, you know, there's a fearlessness that children have where it's like, well, I saw them do it over on TV, so why can't I do it over here? So I'd go break down a bunch of cardboards, lay it out right in front of my building around Palmer Park, and near Palmer Park. I was in Eaton Square, and man, I would just break dance in front of the building. And then I'd take that same cardboard and I was doing graffiti on it. I had a thing for wrestling. Shout out to my man Daryl here. When I was younger, and I would do graffiti like on these boxes and turn them into like little fake wrestling belts and all of that. You know, just I was wild, man. And so if it wasn't that, you know, and then of course DJing, like I was just always going through my family's records. You know, my mom's tapes, you know, and then I started getting my own. I didn't have money, so I'm gonna just say I was getting my own, you know. But yeah, man, I just loved everything about it, you know. And when I heard rappers, they sounded like people I knew, and so I felt like people I knew had a voice. And so it was probably, if I'm being completely honest, I would say like of all of the things in hip hop culture, maybe rap was the first thing that it wasn't the first thing I really fell in love with. It was everything else. And then when I really started listening to rappers and being able to relate that to different things I saw in my community and people I knew instantly, like, my heart was full, you know what I mean? Like, I just knew it was for me, which was tough being from here, too, because it's all about go-go here, first and foremost. So the homies definitely they were like, man, you love hip-hop a bit too much, right? Like, it's cool, but it's not go-go. And I'm like, yeah, but, you know? And so there was that. In terms of when that moment struck for me, when I knew I could do it, it was always about the homies, right? Like, rapping is kind of like it's a rites of passage, right? Like in terms of like you know, it's almost like being knighted. So at one point in high school, my voice changed. Like, I didn't always have this voice, right? I was real light at one point, right? Like, this is you know, it's a different time. And so when my voice changed, the homies started, like, we would be at the lunch table, they're beating on the table, whatever, making beats, and we're rapping our favorite songs. It's like we're battling, but we're battling with our favorite song. So you're quoting the song you love, I come back with a song I love. And at one point, one of my homies said to me, and this is the moment that I was like, okay, I can do this. One of my friends was like, man, you sound better than some of the rappers saying they stuff. I was like, what? Like, bro, like, I almost cried. You know, like, for real. Like, because they weren't just men to me. They weren't just, like, they were gods to me. Like, you know, when I was a kid, like, certain things that certain things that I still apply in adulthood, I very much learned through hip-hop, right? Like, when people talk about all the negative things that hip-hop, they perceive it to be, I don't see that. Like, everything I feel like that people look at me and say I'm a good brother, like, I learned through watching hip-hop artists. My father wasn't there, right? So, like, I learned about fatherhood from, like, different artists that I knew were fathers. Rakim used to have his son dancing in the videos with him. You know what I mean? And a long list of artists that I can think of who like always kind of found a way to involve their children or rapped about their children and different things, and different concerns they had with their people and their community. So I mean, that's And hip hop has always been political in a sense, always been about activism, always been about creating peace.
Can I mention something?
Yeah, so
Crazy
you know,
enough, like when I was
the core of it, I should say. I know like people who really don't know the culture, like in terms of what birthed hip hop, they don't understand that sometimes. They just see what the media like gives them. But the hip hop I know and what I grew up with, and I'm not just talking about rap music because hip hop's more than rap music. It's literally like it's like the love of it inspired gang members to create peace treaties in their own neighborhood when police couldn't do that, when the local government couldn't do that. So it's a powerful vehicle that I'm blessed to be a part of now. I'm sorry.
Oh no, all good. When I was 3 years old, right? When you talk about political and music, do you remember a song called "Self-Destruction"?
Oh, absolutely.
Like that song kind of made me look at a message, in music and say that, I knew a lot of gang members and things of that nature, right? When people started actually sending messages of not just positivity, but to end gang violence and to start looking at each other in a way where we were more respectful. Like, ironically, we did essays in class because my teacher was a hip hop head. So when you say that, like in my head, right, it took me back to 3rd grade where I'm thinking about my teacher and she made us write our feelings about this song, which made me articulate it in a way I never did before. So like I just had to.
Yeah, and I think it's important to recognize too that these were young people, like that was leading this charge, right? Like that's an important part of it to understand as well. Like anytime people love to point the finger at what's wrong with today's society, which is always going to happen. I always look to the parents. I'm like, well, those kids have parents, right? And so, but it's amazing to kind of look at the generation that birthed hip-hop and the people that followed them and kind of followed certain ideologies and different things and pushed it forward to like what was going on in their community and in their homes, right, that made them, I think of the quote, something out of nothing, right? Like they're taking money out of music programs. And so now people are still trying to find a way to create music when they don't have classical training, right? And they don't have that background. And then you get hip hop, right? But then there are problems in the community that the people responsible for providing certain opportunities to that community and providing resources to that community, they're not being given that. They're not being given that opportunity, that chance to actually lift up their community by going that route. So then they find another way to do it through block parties, through other community activities and things that literally made their community safer for when rival gangs and other people couldn't even pass through there if you had the wrong cut on. So like these are all things that hip hop is directly responsible for. And it was like for me, that was huge because the community I grew up in, I grew up around violence. Like I've literally seen people shot in front of me before. So like to hear this music, like hear people who were coming from a place that was similar to where I was coming from, actually empower themselves, other people, and really give us a voice and not give this one monolithic look at our people. I will forever love hip hop for that. You know what I mean? So.
Shingo?
Yeah, I definitely vibe with what Stan said. As far as my personal connection, it's like while I was listening to Substantial and a lot of things raced through my mind. It's very multifaceted and I can take it all the way back, from like since I have this opportunity, if you don't mind.
Oh yeah,
like
go for it.
because I grew up in Tanzania. Okay, let me take it back and forward. Who here likes stickers? Be honest. Everybody likes stickers, right? I love stickers. And I still do to this day. I make stickers, believe it or not, every day. I cut them out, I tag them, I use scissors. I treat scissors like they're my markers, those are my lines. And I give them away most of the time, but I love stickers. And because I'm so into it, I make a lot of layerings and different types of stuff, and I love recycling things. I just go to my friend's sticker shop and take all the scraps, and then I just keep them, and I use them as my, my supplies. So, and then, anyway, I make a lot of good stickers. So I was talking about this, why, it was almost like we were having a panel discussion about why I like stickers so much. Like, what was your first love? When did you get into stickers? And I was talking to my friend about it, who I did a portrait of him using sticker layering. But anyway, we were talking about it, and I was like, you know what? It definitely started when I was in Tanzania, because when I was growing up in Africa, I was so isolated from printed matter. I'd never seen colored print till I was age 5 or 6, ever. So the first time I saw colored magazine, printed magazines, it just blew me away. And then when I saw sticker sheets, that just melted my brain. I could not believe that you could even have glossy prints and then detach them from a backing, and then you can permanently put it somewhere.
Yeah.
That concept just blew me away. And to me, hip-hop is like that. It's really the same thing. You take things and then you rearrange them, you reorganize them, decorate them in a way that you collage a sound to the way you collage images or graphics or tagging. And that's always stayed with me. That's why I got into art, when I was a kid. And that was my way in, when I was always treated as an outsider. When I was an Asian person in London, my way in was art. So I now recall, I drew a bunch of characters, I drew a bunch of mazes, and I passed them out, and people just saw me, oh, he's just an art kid, that was just me, and that always stayed with me. Even when I went back to Japan for schooling, everybody saw me as, oh, he's the foreign kid, he didn't grow up with us. But my way in was to be artistic, and sometimes I put on plays, and sometimes I made posters, or but I would just take it so far that people would be like, damn, he's really into it, and I remember always incorporating things that was like sampling. I'll put on a play, and then I'll play this song that everybody knew that referenced something else, and that'll just trigger a memory, So that was the fun that I always had. But throughout high school, I was just a fan, and of course a lot of songs piqued my interest. Mm-hmm. But I was just a kid in California, hip hop obviously came from New York, and that whole rugged culture, I never really grew up in it, so I never really understood it until I moved to Berkeley, and then I met all these wonderful mentors that taught me what hip-hop was for the first time, really. Yeah. So I've literally been playing catch-up since I was 18. That's pretty late to be an artist in my eyes, But because I had this little background in art and I had a knack for putting things together, I've just been, like I said earlier, I got sucked into it. Yeah. And I still feel the same way since I was 18, I still feel like a kid in a library. I don't know everything. I'm still in awe of all these, pioneers of hip hop that created the culture and the music. But also, quickly, before I forget, but it's also something unique to the Bay Area that I was given the opportunity to be somebody, as an Asian immigrant or Asian American, because I had a lot of great role models too. We had DJ Qbert and his entire crew, the best scratch DJs or turntablists ever. Shortcut, Apollo, all of those guys. And all these DJ crews, right, that we were literally friends with. And there was one panel that I sat in that really influenced me that had Jeff Chang. He's a great author. He does he's knocked out a lot of great books. Just look him up, Jeff Chang. And another guy was Oliver Wang. He's a professor too now. He's a great DJ. He goes by O-Dub. And another guy his name is Lyrics Born. He's mixed European and Japanese. He was a part of a group called Soul Size and Latyrix. He's a great rapper. He's a great actor now too. He's doing a lot of great things. So anyway, I had a lot of great mentors.
Yeah.
So, and of course, Hieroglyphics and Living Legends and all the guys that came up from, the Bay Area culture where their parents were in the civil rights movement and the Black Panthers. And for them, it was normal to be into activism. It wasn't like a stretch, to talk about the ills of society as much as the fun parts of, being a musician and an artist. So I was just kind of thrown into that whole scene, and I just kind of picked it up as I went along. And and just the whole activism and the innovation and using the turntable and sampler and then eventually the computer, to do everything DIY, that's just kind of been my motivation for me. Nice. And that has not changed.
Well, thank you, man. Thank you so much. So real quick, I had a couple of other questions, and we're going to get to those. But I do want to give people in the audience a chance to interact with you guys.
Sure.
So, how do we do this fairly?
Just raise your hand.
Oh, thank you. So please, anybody who wants to know a thing thus far, right, this would be your opportunity to ask your question.
EyeQ, won't you tell us your origin story?
I was trying to get away from that, to be honest with you. But I got you.
Okay, EyeQ, will you please answer the question about your origins as well?
Okay, guys, so hello. I'm EyeQ, and I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I would say for me, I'm a lot later to the game than most. And hip-hop for me was derived over a love, but I never thought it was something that I would do, right? I would write poetry. I grew up writing, so I'd write short stories, I'd write poetry, but hip-hop was a thing where I knew like every lyric to every song, to every MC I liked, and I listened to music everywhere. So for me, it just started with a love of music from my mom, right? My mom would play Anita Baker, and I think it's Anita Baker's music that really started to pull me into the musicality of it all, right? Because the people who play her music, it was always so great. And if you listen to her voice, for example, it's like an instrument, So when I listened to her music, I cared more about the melodies and the way things kind of brought across. Other people that really, I know this might be a little cheesy, but I love Will Smith, for example, right? When I heard Brand New Funk, right, I liked hip hop, but when I heard Brand New Funk, it was over for me. Like, I knew that hip hop would forever be my medium, When I decided to start making music was actually, I think, maybe 7 or 8 years ago at an event here in DC called MagFest. And it was very important because at that point, I would write music and I would write rhymes and the whole nine, but I just thought I sucked. So a teacher of mine from high school who was like a mom to me, I found out at MagFest that she was passing away from cancer. And we talked about life and a lot of things, and the one thing that she told me was just in life to follow my heart. And so hip-hop has always been my heart, and it's always been a thing that it's been like something that I was ashamed that I wanted to be a rapper, right? That I wanted to make rhymes because I didn't think I was good enough to participate. And so after that, I promised that I would do whatever it was that struck my heart to do. But hip hop has always been there. I mean, I grew up not just listening to dudes like Rakim. I also listened to a lot of like, I don't know if anybody's familiar with any Korean hip hop, right? I grew up like, I listened to you guys throughout the years because I listened to a lot of Japanese hip hop, right? But I also listened to a lot of Korean hip hop. Like, wherever I was going in the world, I was always looking for their hip hop, right? Because I was always curious as to like how they would spin it, right? And some people, I love the way that they would take our culture, right? And they would make it into theirs, right? That was great because I would hear elements of their lives and their cultures in their music. So that's kind of how it all started for me, was just wanting to express myself and tell my own stories or talk about the things that I saw. And when Miss Slade passed away, it really made me reevaluate my entire life, right? Like, I was a basketball player and I was I wasn't great, but I was good enough to make most teams. But music was always my heart, and I put it behind other things. And so that's how I started making hip hop, is I just simply said that after that, I went home from MagFest. Miss Slade passed away, and I wrote my very first song, right? And it started off as a poem, and I sat in the closet, literally, and just wrote and cried like nobody's business. And a friend of mine named Richie Branson, he released a bunch of instrumentals, right? Because I didn't have a producer, I didn't know how to produce or any of that stuff. And I was listening to the music, and I had the music in my head, right? And that's kind of how I made my first song. The other thing was I started writing. Ironically, how Nujabez is he's been around in my life a lot, right? It's taken me through a lot of times, but there was a dude named Sule, right? Sule actually, at one point in time, had something to do with Hideout. And he was a rapper. He turned around and I heard his music, and it was very similar to the music that you guys make. And so once I heard the music, I was like, look, I want this guy to continue, making music. We talked about life, we hung out and played spades, but he was not making music anymore. So past the poem that I first wrote, right, I kept bothering Sule every day. I was like, yo, when you gonna make some more music? Because I want it. When you gonna make some more music? And he got tired of me saying it. And he was like, you know what? I'll make it when you make it with me. But I wanted him to make music so much, I was like, yo, I'll see you tomorrow. That's how bad I wanted to hear this music. And so it kept growing from there. And he said you should really consider it. And I just thought he was being nice. Ironically, in the back of the room, the very first, where you at, Kay? I know you were in here somewhere because I saw you walk in. It was actually Kay and an artist by the name of Mega Ran. K Murdoch, you might as well stand up.
Yeah. What up, Kay?
It was actually Kay and another artist by the name of Mega Ran. When I first made my demos, I let them hear my music, and they were like, Chris, you rap? And I was like, nah, but, And so they actually also encouraged me to try it. And if all of these people who I thought made amazing music was like, you should give it a shot, why not? And, X amount of years later, here I am, and here we are. But it's funny because a lot of my journey, started with a lot of the people that I'm around now. And in some way, shape, form, or fashion, pushed me in a direction to where I never thought in a million years I'd be working with you guys or doing anything pertaining, because in my mind, you guys are, when you connect with something in that way, it kind of makes you look at people like they ain't people no more, you know? And I met you, and it humanized you in a way. And like I said, here we are. So I hope that helps. I know I was all over the place, but it's been a long, long journey.
But yeah, on that note though, like I definitely want to put it out there that when I was still studying the game and all the peers that I looked up to, like if you think about it now, how young they were, you know, like even in the 90s, and it's amazing how innovative they were, you know. I mean, to me, the people who are just so high in talent and execution and just everything, you know, like the hieroglyphics and the freestyle fellowship, those guys are still up there for me. Just everything in terms of delivery, performance, just the lyrical content, the flow, it's just so high up there musically. Like, yeah, like better than, I mean, not better than, but just as good as any great jazz record, you know? Like, it's perfection to me. And to think about looking back now, 25 years ago, you know, they're still 18, 19, 20-year-olds, you know? It's amazing, like, what type of a fertile ground they were raised in, you know, like culturally, you know, spiritually. It's amazing. Yeah.
I wanted to piggyback that. I think of like Jay Dilla is like one of my all-time just favorite musicians. Period. And I've had the pleasure of meeting his mother and talking to different people in the biz. And one of the things I think about when you were talking about it's amazing what they were doing, the perfect example, just to kind of help you understand, because oftentimes these are people who don't necessarily always have like the classical background, right? But they have the the drive, right, and the dedication to kind of figure something out and push it in a direction that maybe no one thought of before. And one of the craziest stories I think about when I think of Dilla is there was a track he was working on, and this is before most people knew who he was. And he felt like the current tempo of the beat it just wasn't working, and it needed to be slowed down. And so this dude, he didn't have the equipment and he didn't have the money to just go out and buy something, right? Because you got some producers making YouTube videos, they're like, I hear a bugle. I'm gonna just order one, and then Amazon Prime, and it just shows up, and now there's a bugle on the track, and that's dope, I guess, right? But Dilla literally took apart a cassette deck. He took apart the tape deck, reconfigured it in a way to make it play the tape slower, and then put it back together and recorded it slower. Like, that's how his mind worked. Like, I don't have any equipment in my home right now to make this slower. I'm gonna take it apart. I'm gonna become an engineer right here, right now, and I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna figure out how the mechanics of this works, and I'm gonna make something amazing. That right there, I think, is the spirit of this culture. Like, people who just they don't have the same tools to work with sometimes, but they have this desire just to constantly create and express themselves. And inspire other people who are from similar situations or completely different situations to do great things. Dilla, like what Dilla does for me is, like, there was a quote where he said, like, I don't know what it feels like to not want to make music. Like, I don't know what that feels like to not be inspired. And then when I think of the story of him making the beats for Donuts and how, like, over 90% of those beats were literally made from a hospital room. Like, you know, and there's days where I'm tired. I'm super tired. And I don't want to do a lot of things. But I think of things like that. I told his mother that when I met her, and I was just like, I think of your son a lot, right? Like, yesterday I had my car packed with this brother's belongings that he had shipped here. And I had every intention of delivering them to him once he got off the plane safely. I'm at the park with my daughter. My daughter broke her arm yesterday, like while we were at the park. And, you know, I mean, I was in an emergency room with my daughter for like 4, almost 5 hours. But I also, you know, of course I'm gonna do I like to think I'm a good dad. So I did everything I could to make sure my daughter was straight. My wife came to the hospital and met us. But like, I also told this brother I was gonna give him his stuff. And so
by the way, I told him it was okay if he. I said, by the way, I told him it was okay if he chose not to show up because his daughter broke her arm. You don't have to.
I need my stuff, bro. She got another arm.
And?
You know?
And?
Right, so you showing up, right? Nah, man, he was like, dude, it's cool, you know? He was saying, you know, everyone was checking in, and they were cool about it, but just like my musical hero and a long list of other dudes, like my musical hero was dying for like quite some time due to his illness and was still going on tour performing in a wheelchair. Like, so yeah, so doctor said my daughter's cool and I did everything I could do for her. And my wife was worried about me going out by myself, so me and my whole family rolled up, dropped off my brother's stuff, and now we're here with y'all. Like, I love this, and I think all of the greats or whatever, there's nothing that's gonna get in between them and how much they love it, and how much how far they are willing to push it to inspire others and create just great things and great opportunities for themselves and others.
So then right before we give it back to the audience so they can ask more questions, I was going to say that a lot of people, like, you know, you're talking about your heroes and people that, you know, you've looked up to and that makes you feel that way, but you guys are also those types of artists. Like, you inspire other people from other generations like me and like EyeQ to, you know, follow that example because you continually put out that example and, you know, basically show that to other people. And, you know, we continue to look up to people like you because it's just a constant cycle. You know, you need more role models as people are still coming up and learning more things. So, you know, you guys are also role models and also artists of that caliber that, you know,
It's true.
Are something to look up to.
Yeah. Can I just say one more thing? But yeah, I definitely take that to heart, and obviously I try my best to be one. My studio doors are always open. I'm in Hawaii right now, in Honolulu. But also, based on everything that you said, I mean, if you watch any documentary, you know, the whole drive and invention, the innovation is not limited to hip hop. You know, any genre or any art form definitely goes through that. Like, people use tools that weren't intended to do certain things, or even if it's machinery, electronics, or medium, people always break that barrier because they'll take it there. You know, and oftentimes it is a limitation of things that will, you know, is the mother of all inventions, right? Or necessity or limitations in my book. So I feel that in this day and age, everything is so convenient. Even hip hop and music production is so convenient because the companies are catering to the user. Okay, you have these tools. We're going to give you the software. We're going to give you the sound packs. We're going to give you the plugins. And it's not inconvenient anymore. And that kind of takes a lot of the fun away from me. It takes away the DIY aspect. It takes away you going out there, finding something to record, or finding a musician to record something that's unique to you, as opposed to using something that anyone can access. You know, and it's kind of fitting that we are in a library now, because it is the same feeling when you go out and even dig for records, or you gotta dig really with your own hands to find something that is unique to you, and you gotta put out. Sometimes finding things, I feel like it is a very spiritual thing. Like, it is like, you know, not to get all hippie, but it is a law of attraction. Even if you want to go find an item of clothing, or you want to go find a particular screw that you need, you got to put out that vibration, and then you'll find it. And then when you find it, you'll know it. And that's just a cycle that perpetuates itself, and that's the creativity that will enforce your knack for doing that, and it makes you feel good, so you want to do it again, and it just becomes a cycle.
All right.
I have a question. So me and my friends just finished making a Samurai Champloo inspired fan film, and I just want to thank you for everything, Shingo2. And my question is, what was the process like into making Battle Cry with Nujabes?
Okay, I'm gonna make it real quick. So me and Nujabes, we started working around 2000, 99, 2000. And this was probably year before Samurai Champloo came out, 2004, so probably around 2003. And I was living in Oakland at the time, and me and him were probably working on other songs as well, like Lovesick Part 3, I remember. And one day he just hit me up like, hey, there's this late night animation that needs some music, so would you like to contribute to it? I said, sure. And he gave me a song. It was a happy piano track that eventually became Horizon on his album. And he told me that he wanted it in Japanese, so I wrote the song, talking about my background, and I had my DJ scratch on it. It was good. But then the song went to the producers, and it came back to us like, actually, you know what, we want something dark, and we want something in English. So he reset the beat, which, is the one that you hear now. And I was definitely bummed a little bit because I was excited about the first one, but I never expected that it'll be heard anywhere outside of Japan because it was just this late night anime. And I was just trying to cater to that, but I was like, okay, well, whatever, we'll just do it in English. And that's just kind of how it came out. And yeah, at that time, I was researching my own ancestry. I actually have a friend who forges, katanas in Okayama Prefecture. I had gone to his workplace to really study the process, so I had a great deal of respect for the craft. So that's kind of how the verse is dedicated to.
Nice. Okay, so moving along, and great question, by the way. Hello.
All right, so this is a question for any of y'all, whoever wants to answer this. And this is kind of an and/or question. What are your top 5 favorite hip-hop artists, or what is your top 5 musical influences for you?
Stan, just the list. Just the list. One, two, 3, 4, 5.
If it's not that many, that's fine. If you don't want to go that many.
Here we go. So my top 5 MCs are, and this is no particular order. Black Thought, 3 Stacks. That's Andre 3000. What was it? Redman's forever in my top 5. Oh my God, who am I forgetting? I usually do this. So, Nas. And then it's Common. Those are my 5. I got love for all the OGs who came before them, but I really feel like those MCs, like, they were great then, and them dudes at any given moment can give you something on par with the greatest artists right now. And that's what's amazing, because everyone I just listed is like mid-40s to almost 50 years old. But they get on tracks with 20-year-olds. They get on tracks with some of the OGs in the game, and they handle business every time. Most of those MCs I listed are arguably some of the most consistent artists in history, in the history of hip hop, and so that's why they remain in my top 5. No pressure.
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna take it a different route then. I have a lot of favorite MCs. Not really in any order, but Royce da 5'9" is like one of my favorite artists of all time. Yasin Bey, Mos Def, Kanye West before he started making a lot of the newer stuff. Yeah, I grew up on College Dropout and Late Registration, so like College Dropout was like my most played CD of all time. And so I mean, but I'm gonna move on to more like composers and producers because I'm a beat maker and producer. And just off top, Nobuo Uematsu did all the Final Fantasy from 1 to 10 is possibly the greatest modern day composer of all time, I feel like. He had no musical training whatsoever, and he was composing, like Shingo was talking about, the things that stop you from being able to, you know, the convenience of it. He was making music on 8-bit systems, you know, that were like basically orchestras, you know, like he was putting these sounds together in ways that you can't even imagine that people who had full orchestras were unable to do, and he had no musical knowledge either. So he was doing that for Squaresoft at the time. And then everything, you know, upgrading to the 16-bit system with like the Super NES and stuff, he was still basically making orchestral compositions with, you know, that type of stuff. So he just did so much, and I feel like he's one of the best, if not the very best of all time. And then Yasunori Mitsuda, who was also did Chrono Trigger, Chrono Cross, and a bunch of good stuff. So I'll leave it at that. But
Awesome. You got 2 minutes. Are you saying your list, or you good?
I can. Well, I already kind of said it, but obviously I love everybody from the East to West Coast. My top 5 would be definitely Dell and Hieroglyphics. This rapper, Saphir, his crew is Hobo Junction. He's one of the most creative guys in the world. Freestyle Fellowship, of course, that's 4 MCs. All of them are like, they're like the Beatles to me, Freestyle Fellowship. And man, actually, can I give one special shout out, which is my motivation has come from reading Tezuka Osamu mangas. He's the godfather of manga and anime in Japan. He would be 90 years old this year. And I'm also part of a tribute project that we're going to record for. And I've met his daughter, Rumiko, who's an avid music fan, so that's how it materialized. So, you know, hip-hop is really about incorporating your knowledge and inspiration and then spitting out through your filter. So,
Nice.
yeah, I'm forever grateful for that format, you know?
All right. With that said, we had like 2 minutes. I don't know where we at. So real quick, 1 minute. So unfortunately, guys, we have to wrap this up. But on a positive note, right? Anybody here going to Otakon this weekend? Yeah? So on a positive note, we have other panels that we'll be doing. We have a Funimation panel where we'll be talking about Samurai Champloo. We have an anime and hip-hop panel, and I'm missing one right now. We also have the tribute and
a
a
concert tonight
yes.
too.
We have a tribute to Nujabes panel. We also have a concert here tonight at 7 o'clock. So, you know, try to plug all the things. Am I forgetting a thing?
Yes. As you said, the concert's outside here tonight. We have a concert tomorrow at Otakon, as some of you already know.
Correct.
And then there's another panel that I'm actually doing with my business partner / wife on Sunday. For those of you who, no, seriously, y'all are laughing. I'm serious.
She's dope.
Right?
She's real dope.
She's amazing. But no, we're doing a panel on Sunday for all of the artists here who are looking for different ways to fund what it is you're doing. We have a business called Substantial Art and Music where we consult and we help artists fund their projects, their goals, and different things. So we're doing that 11:30 a.m. on Sunday, bright and early. So get up, let's handle some business and help you live these dreams.
All right. Last but not least, I want to give a shout out to the Library of Congress.
yes.
So you might as well come on up here. Come on up.
For coming out to our awesome performers, and we're gonna check you out at 7 in like half an hour. And thank you guys for coming to the library today. We really appreciate that you came out here. And the whole reason we wanted to host this panel and the whole partnership with Otakon is kind of like what you said, Shingo, in that knowledge and creativity are a cycle, and we keep receiving from history and we keep giving back to people who are going to dip into what we think is present but is going to become history. And we want to keep that creativity going. And you can find out more about the library and you and how we can connect together on Saturday at 10 a.m. at the LOC panel at Otakon. So come see us. And if you like this panel, you can relive the joys of panel when you catch this on YouTube. So you can subscribe to Library of Congress and see what other amazing collections we have. We represent all voices from all walks of life, from every country. Half of our stuff is not even in English. We have 470 languages. We have 22 pieces of music, including 22 million pieces of music. I wanted you to be impressed with 22, but 22 million pieces in our collection of 168 million items. So I hope you guys are going to continue your relationship with us, explore our digital collections, and just, have fun.
And if you need some hip hop, we'll be definitely cataloging some things with them here. So just so you know, that's a thing.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, and have a good night.